seems like a lot of the tension around you, especially with these other departments and the Board of Supervisors, it stems from you saying, hey, this is what I'm about. I'm about clarity and the truth and doing my job because that's what I was elected to do. And them saying, well, that's not what you're doing. You're not providing clarity. You're not doing your job. You're not taking these steps that you should be taking. And so someone in there is telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from an outside perspective like mine, what my biggest problem is I'm reading all these Lost Coast articles. I'm watching you speak. I'm going through that report, and there's no clarity. There's still no, okay, well, who is telling the truth here? Are these claims against the Board of Soups and these other people, which we'll get into later, are those legitimate, or are there claims against you that, you're not an effective leader, that you are not doing what the job entails, you're not helping your staff? Are those true? Because somebody's got to be telling the truth. It can't all be a lie. So I would assume that setting the standard with this, especially in this case with this document, where if it is slanderous, that's a problem. And if it's not slanderous and you saying it is, that's also a problem. So I would imagine that trying to clear that up would be beneficial. I don't know if for everyone, but definitely for you, wouldn't it? If staff came forward and said, hey, that didn't happen. Okay, so walk me back. So 2018 is when you're first running. You assume office in 2019, and this is going to be your first term.
Yeah.
You know what you're up against, or you kind of had an idea of what you're up against, right? You've gone to the first Board of Supervisors meeting. And yet in 2018, there's this first investigation report into you. Did that come as a shock? Did you know that that was coming? Were you blindsided by that? Because it sounds like from your stance, your perspective is, I'm here, I'm going to do my job. And if you don't like me, that's unfortunate, but I'm here to do my job. I'm going to work for the people. That seems to be what you're presenting, right?
Yes.
So to have that come as you're running for election, that's got to be a hard pill to swallow. No.
They've prepared me for this, right? They've been constantly throwing things at me while I'm trying to juggle.
Even back to 2018?
Yeah.
That first time, wow.
You can find articles about conflict with our offices dating back to 2017, 2018. That investigation report being released now did come as a surprise because I've been asking for it since 2018.
Oh, and they wouldn't give it to you?
No.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But now it's okay to give it to me.
Do you feel like that was intentional where you're running for
re-election?
Yeah.
100%. I know it's a podcast. I don't know if people can see, but I need to use visuals.
Oh, you can do, it's recording.
I talk with my hands sometimes. So let's picture this is the office of the auditor controller. On this side of the office are the offices of the auditor and the assistant. Then it's a big wide space. No other offices until you hit the other end of the office. That's where payroll used to be before it was taken out to go to HR. There was a wall right around here. 75% of the office was auditor controller, and then 25% was payroll. It was a makeshift wall that the payroll staff put up because they wanted that separation. When I came to the office, I understood that my job description included overseeing the day-to-day operations of the office, which include payroll. Remember that there had been a 7-month period with no assistant auditor controller. So this group of people was very accustomed to running their own show, managing their own time without any oversight. My predecessor was not very much engaged with the day-to-day operations, so he left everybody to their own devices. He trusted that they were doing what they needed to do, and only when he heard about complaints would he then get involved. He said, go ahead, do your job. There wasn't much in the way of training when I took the position. I started going over to the payroll side to try to understand, what do you all do? How do your schedules line up with the rest of the office? Trying to understand, why is there this wall if we're all in the same office and we're not actually separate divisions or separate offices? what I didn't understand is that, politics, there's certain people that you can't go ask questions of. There's certain people who are going to be more open about what they do because they're more secure. And then there's others who maybe don't have that job security, who are afraid to let you see what they do. I don't know if you've had a chance to read that investigation report.
Yeah, I got about halfway through the
Okay.
redacted report. Yeah.
Did you see the section about how the complaint was that I asked, what are you working on today?
Yes. And there was one section that kind of caught me off guard. It was in a 10-day period. You had called somebody into your office 4 times to ask them what they were doing over 10 days.
I can't even tell you that that's true because I don't remember that at all. And I also looked for emails that corroborated that. I couldn't find any. I do remember walking over there myself and asking, what are you guys working on today? In that tone, because I thought we were friendly. I mean, we were even Facebook friends at that time. It wasn't until the kitchenette situation.
That was a big part of
Mm-hmm.
the report as well.
So I was there in the office one morning and it was like 6 or 7 a.m. And the public works facilities people came into the office. They just stormed right in. And I was like, what's happening? What's going on? And they said, you blew out the fuse, or I don't know what they said. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm not doing anything. And they were walking around the office trying to find something. They're like, a fuse blew. We need to fix it. Then they arrived at the kitchenette area that was over there in the payroll side. And they were like, this is the problem. You can't do this. And they're yelling at me as if I've done whatever it was that was wrong. And I was like, what is it that's wrong? You can't plug everything into one outlet. So something else you need to understand about our office, we don't have outlets on the wall. We have monuments that stick out from the ground, and that's what you plug things into.
Oh, like those little ground towers that they
Mhm.
have. Oh, that's weird.
Some of them are even exposed wires. Some of them have an actual outlet that looks like what you would see on a wall. And that had a surge protector plugged into it. The surge protector was hanging, it wasn't on the ground, it was hanging because connected to the surge protector was a refrigerator, a toaster, a Keurig, and a microwave. And all of those cables were barely reaching it so much that it lifted it off the floor. And all of these things were feeding into this one exposed monument. And so they were like, you need to take that off. You need to unplug that. So I did. The payroll staff was upset about it. I told them we have a break room on the other side of the office where we have a full-size fridge. There's a coffee maker, a toaster, a microwave, everything else that you have here, you have over there. This isn't safe. And that was enough. They complained to my predecessor. It was February of 2018. I remember because I was traveling to a training and I came back from the training. It was a Friday, February 19th or 20th. And he said, stay away from payroll. And I said, why? What's happening? They complained about you. Just leave them alone. Don't go over there to payroll. And I was like, but it's in my job description that I'm supposed to oversee payroll. How can I not do my job right? Will I be evaluated on this later? Are you going to change my job description? And he said, no, just don't worry about it. Just leave it alone. He said some things that I did not think were reasonable for him to say in his position about these people, which resulted in a separate complaint that I filed for inappropriate.
Something demeaning or?
This isn't a secret because it was reported by North Coast Journal back in 2018. What he said to me at the time was, they're hormonal. Just ignore them. It's a mean girls club. And I thought, you can't say that about women in the workplace. So I filed a complaint to standing up for these people that were also complaining about me. And so I was like, okay, I respect your authority. I won't go over there. That was February of 2018. 2 or 3 months later, there was an article written on another blog post, Wordsworth. I think the blogger is John Shiv, because the payroll team had written a letter of no confidence against me It was 3 of them that signed it, but they wrote it to read "we in the office," we in the auditor controller's office. They delivered it to HR, and then someone in HR released it to the public. And you could tell that because the letter itself had the "received by personnel" stamp. The letter was written to the Board of Supervisors, so it was apparently public for that reason. That's why I knew there was going to be something coming because, now they've written this letter, even though I haven't talked to them in 2 months. I haven't engaged with them at all since I was told to stay away from payroll. And then there was the investigation, which I participated in. I was interviewed once. And I was, I think, one of the first interviews. So they interviewed everybody else after me, and then I never got an opportunity for a follow-up or to respond to anything that was said. I asked, "Can I have the results?" "No, it's confidential." But I'm the one they're complaining about. I should be able to see what's on the report. "No, it's confidential." And I think because I was pushing it so much, we got called into a meeting with HR. At this point, it's August of 2018. My predecessor had resigned and retired in April of 2018, and the board had appointed an interim auditor controller, who happens to be my opponent today.
Cheryl.
Mm-hmm. She was my boss, and the HR director at the time was Lisa DiMatteo. Lisa DiMatteo called us into a meeting. She wanted to talk to us about the results of the investigation. It was her, the assistant HR director, Cheryl, and I. Lisa DiMatteo told me and Cheryl that the complaints did not meet the threshold for HR to pursue any action against me, but they wanted to encourage Cheryl to take action against me. That, these complaints, even though they don't meet the threshold, they're still complaints and that she should do something about it. She didn't. She chose not to. Because those complaints, as you saw or will see when you finish the report, they're a joke. And it's taken me a long time to say that out loud. It wasn't until I saw the report a couple of weeks ago or months ago, what is time, that I was like, oh my God, this is the thing. This is the big report that I couldn't see in 2018. This is the great offense that I asked, what are you working on? Oh, I'm losing it. And I responded with a parody video.
I did. I saw your video, and I was laughing for sure.
Oh my God.
I was laughing. You had some interesting edits in there with the whole redactions and hashtag Pizzagate 2018.
Oh God, I couldn't believe it. Like, this was the thing I lost sleep over. This was the thing. Oh.
What did you think when you heard? Because at least up to the point that I've made it, there's a lot of talk about stress and anxiety, and that some of these employees feel like you're pitting divisions against each other, and your demeanor and your tone are causing them extra undue stress. And one employee had to up her anti-anxiety medication and all this stuff. What did you think about when you heard that?
I don't remember reading about the upping the anxiety medication.
Mm-hmm. I think she was already on it, and she had to up her dose or something. I think it said in the report.
Oh shoot, I wish I could remember that part. Well, so when I walked into the office, there was a makeshift wall. I didn't create the division. It was already there, and it was created specifically by them. When I took the position of assistant auditor controller, they actually asked me to build a real wall. They asked me to purchase soundproof panels, so that they wouldn't have to hear the staff on the other side. So
they wanted to be...
Yes.
Payroll wanted to be separated from your direct staff.
Yes.
Okay.
And that is documented in emails. That's documented in quotes. I mean, they actually did the research for these panels and these walls and sent it to me to request that I pay for it. So it was very surprising for me to read in this report that they felt that I was creating division, because I didn't feel like I was. And when my boss told me, stay away, I listened. It was actually a relief for me. One less thing for me to do, great. That I won't be penalized for later, great. That's where my perspective is coming from. When I read that they felt anxious, it was surprising to me because, one, nobody ever communicated that to me. If anyone had, Of course, I would have apologized or tried to understand what is it that I did to hurt you so that I don't do it again. But it's not until right now that I'm running for re-election that this report even comes out. And I can't even ask them for an explanation because they're gone. They don't work here anymore.
Was it surprising in the report? And I wish I like obviously it doesn't say who it is or what division they're in or what department they're from, but it says that at least in one of the witness accounts that they tried to counsel with you repeatedly and tried to say, "Hey, these are the problems," or tried to counsel on behalf of other staff, and that was just not received.
I don't think that that's true. I communicated with the auditor controller's side. I say it's side because
Hmm.
I communicated with them on a regular basis. We had meetings. Anytime someone wanted to actually communicate officially with me, I asked for email. I'm a big believer in documentation. It's what saves us all. It's receipts. Um, and really, it wouldn't have been appropriate for anyone to counsel me on that. It would have had to come from my boss or from someone in HR. The reason why I'm comfortable saying that I don't feel like that's true is because there are so many things in that report that are wildly made up. For example, if I'm the assistant auditor controller of this official government agency, do you think I would invite an employee to meet me outside so that I can give them marijuana?
That was an interesting curveball that I did not expect to see. It wasn't that you invited her to meet outside. It was, I believe, a suggestion of, oh well, you could smoke weed to help with the stress.
Because I want to get sued?
I was surprised to see that in there. I was surprised to see that in there.
Wild.
So that wasn't true.
No.
That never took place.
No. And also, like, there's a dispensary across the street every block. Like, go get your own weed if you need it. Why? It doesn't make sense.
Well, are county employees drug tested?
No, I don't. Well, actually, some might be. I
Okay.
think the sheriffs have to be.
Oh yeah, definitely the sheriffs, but I wasn't sure if.
Maybe probation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
I
sure.
wasn't sure if like your department or where that line gets drawn.
No, there's never been a policy that I've read that requires any county staff to be drug tested
Mm-hmm.
outside of the sheriff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
There were other things in there that I thought were wild, like a conversation that absolutely never took place, where I would be mad because someone said that I should spend time with my family.
Oh yeah. And
That
that
one,
your demeanor changed towards her, and you started.
that one offended me because it just seems so. I don't know what the word is. But it offended me because I've never, that's never happened. I hear a lot from people that I work too much and I should spend time with my family. That doesn't offend me. That's somebody sharing what they think, their opinion. I find ways to spend time with my family. Like right now, it's the busiest time ever, right? I have to work, do the job, and also run for the job. So at 5 o'clock, when it's time to switch gears, I'm in campaign mode. I'm at the campaign office. My husband, who I couldn't do any of this without, brings the kids there. He picks them up from school. We meet there. We have dinner at the campaign office. We spend time together, and then they have to go home to go to bed, and I keep working. I live with my family, so I see them when I'm home. My daughter is of texting age, so I get tons of emojis throughout the day from her. I've never felt disconnected from my family because I work. So that one just felt like you're grasping at straws and making up stories to present an image that just isn't me.
Did you try to push back on any of the findings from that report and say, hey, some of this stuff didn't happen? I think there might be a misinterpretation, or try to reach out to those people to clear any of that up?
I just got the report about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, when you made that video, that's when you got it.
I got that investigation report 3 days before I made the video.
Was that released to the Board of Supervisors back in 2018, or I don't know when they concluded that report?
The report was concluded in August of 2018. I don't think it went anywhere. I asked for copies of it. I wanted to see it. I wanted to understand, but it wasn't provided to me. I was told that it was confidential. Even the investigator himself told me in an email that it was all confidential. He called it attorney work product. So never knew what was on it until 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I think because I had hyped it up so much in my head, I just imagining what it could say, imagining that I've hurt somebody, to see what it actually was and to read so many made up stories about me. And like, that's why I just thought, this is a joke. I have to show people that it's a joke. But it's kind of gotten mixed reviews. Some people appreciate it for what it is. Like, oh, come on. You've had 4 years to do something about it and you bring it up now during a re-election campaign. And so they've found humor in the video. Other people who don't really know me and who have only seen me at board meetings where I have to present a certain way, or where they've only read the negative articles about me, they think, oh, see, this proves that she's a monster. Can't please everybody. But I feel badly that the situation has gotten this bad. There's 3 employees who are part of the complaint. I know that because when their letter was released, the 3 names were visible.
Oh, so you know who the 3 were?
Yeah, I knew in 2018.
Did any of them quit when you won and became the auditor controller in 2019?
No.
Everybody stayed.
Well, they didn't work for me. They didn't work for the auditor controller. The payroll function was moved to HR before I took office.
All of those 3 complaints came from payroll?
Yeah.
Nobody complained directly from the auditor controller office?
No.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Payroll was moved to HR while the interim auditor controller was the auditor controller.
And your predecessor, I know you said that he kind of let everyone do their own thing. Was that the same for the auditor controller office directly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So I know one of the people that complained passed away a couple years ago. She and I were actually okay. Even after that investigation, even after that complaint, we still followed each other on Instagram. And it was very sad when she passed. The other 2 stayed in HR until about a year ago. One of them quit during the pandemic, and the other one was out on leave. She recently returned.
The social media thing was another big aspect of that report in regards to Facebook. It seemed like a reoccurring theme was that staff felt like you posting on Facebook was adding to their stress. That even though you were being ambiguous and making various ambiguous references to things that you didn't approve of, they felt as though members that worked for the county that came to the office would know who it was about. And that added stress to their lives.
I can definitely understand how that can happen. We live in a small town. Just like I was struggling when they released that report to the public, because you can identify who the staff are that were witnesses, because our department has 12 people. So if you already work for the county, you know who everyone is. So I can definitely understand how that can be stressful. What I didn't agree with is the characterization within the report itself. It said quotes from my posts. It didn't include everything that I said, so some of the things were taken out of context. Luckily, the actual screenshots were included at the end of the report, and I just have to leave it up to people to go see the actual post and then compare it to what the report summarizes.
Well, the problem is how many people are actually going to read that report and not just read the articles about the report.
Yeah, that is a challenge.
Yeah, especially where it's so heavily redacted. Getting through that is a bit of a bear.
Yeah. The reason why in the video I made one of the jokes to be about just how redacted it is because I thought, if you want me to improve, you got to tell me what I did, what it is that I need to improve. If I can't even understand what I've done.
How can you fix it?
Mm-hmm.
So walk me through the Pizzagate thing, because that's one of the things that I was struggling with, because it didn't seem like there was. I don't want to diminish anybody's, if they felt they were caused stress, I don't want to diminish that. So I'm trying to understand how, because I got it, like, oh, everyone that moves gets pizza and soda. Oh, if you went out to lunch and didn't help move, You don't get pizza and soda? That didn't seem that far of a stretch.
Everyone was invited to have pizza. Before COVID, when we could buy food and share food and have food all the time, our office had food every week. We would do potlucks. People would bake and bring things. I don't cook or bake very well, so I bought things. I bought pizza. I bought Chinese food. I bought pupusas because I wanted everyone to know my culture a little bit. And this time we were moving the office around because we were getting new furniture. The office that I walked into kind of looked like a junkyard because it was donated furniture from other departments that didn't match, like pieces of wood taped together, and that was somebody's desk. And
Pieces of wood taped together.
yeah, there was a rinky-dink bookcase that if you moved it a certain way, the whole thing falls down.
Oh,
So they
wow.
would prop it up with binders, and like that's what the office was. And I made a friend over at DHHS, and I was like, "Do you guys have any extra desks?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, we got a warehouse full of them. Can we have some?" And they sent over desks for us to have. So I was like, "We're getting new to us desks. Let's move stuff around." And the staff was excited to do it. And so I bought pizzas and sodas and chips. And I bought enough for everybody. We started moving right before the lunch, and then I said, everyone's entitled to their lunch. You can go and come back. I'm going to keep working during lunch. So most of the staff stayed with me. They didn't mind, and we just moved furniture. Right around 1:30, so we've already been open for half an hour. Some of us are still trying to move stuff. That's when these staff walked in, and they were like, "Ooh, pizza." And I was like, "Yeah, we're all helping move. You got to help us move. Here's a box." And she was like, "Oh, I don't want to." And I was like, "Oh." And I was like, "Okay, well, you can't have pizza then." And we all laughed. I laughed. She laughed. Everyone laughed. And I was like, "I'm just kidding. Go ahead, have the pizza."
Oh, you gave her the pizza still?
Yes, she had pizza.
See, now that's a problem because that and what the report says are very different.
Mm-hmm.
The report says that she went to reach for a slice of pizza and then in a very public display in front of the office, you were yelling that she couldn't have pizza because she didn't help move. And then one girl tried to stand up for another girl and say, "Oh, well, she did help move, but the other girl was so embarrassed she walked away or something." And then that was the end of the thing. I don't think
that happened at all. It was a joke. She was in on the joke, and then she had pizza anyway. I said, "I'm just kidding. Go ahead, have pizza."
That's the problem with the report like this, right? I don't know, right? Obviously, because I wasn't there. So I'm an impartial third party who only got halfway through a redacted document. But as I was reading through what I got through, it seemed like a lot of it is, I don't want to say like high school banter, but it's this, oh, he said this, she said that, they said this. And all I was thinking about through this was, okay, where's the proof? Do we have anything concrete of, because then it's cut and dry. Oh, she said this, here's, an email about it, here, I don't know, a video of the altercation would have been nice, but something a little more concrete than, I think they had, so it was 3 people that filed a complaint and an additional 3 witnesses. How many other witnesses were there?
Oh, I don't remember exactly how many witnesses.
Yeah. But it seems like it's a lot of hearsay, right?
It's mostly
this
hearsay.
Was my perception. And if it is true that what you're saying went on, well, that's not in the document. You only have this one side of the document. I mean, that must be I'm over here frustrated for you, and I don't even know what's what.
Mm-hmm. It was very frustrating to read that report. So initially there was anger, frustration, and then I just had to laugh about it. So I was like, what am I going to do now? It's a 4-year-old report. But yeah, she did have pizza. Everyone had pizza. I always share food. I never not let people eat food.
So it was the joke, and then she still got the pizza,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the end of the thing. Did she say anything to you after? Hey, that kind of made me uncomfortable, or hey, nothing?
Nothing. Not once.
And did other staff in your department come forward and back you and say, hey, that's not what... Has anyone come out and spoken against the report? Or it's just been you so far?
There was one... so far, there's been one employee who surprised me and wrote a letter to the editor to Time Standard. where she described a different version of me in the office. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have not.
It's in the Times Standard, and she used to work in the office in 2018, left the department, and then came back since 2021. And in her letter to the editor, she was very honest and said that she and I got off to a rocky start, but then we worked together, and now she's glad to be back and happy to work with me.
But I mean, there were clearly other people when that pizza thing happened, right? And nobody else other than the people who filed the complaint and the witnesses that were interviewed, nobody else has come forward to corroborate either that side that's in the report or your side?
Directly to me, yeah, I've gotten the staff that can be identified that still work there have come to me and have said
that's not what happened.
That's not what happened. That's not what I told the investigator. The investigator was leading me on.
They said that to you, that
yes.
The investigator was leading them on.
And they were expressing frustration, and they said, I got to tell someone. And I said, no, just leave it alone. I've actually asked them to just let it die, that it won't benefit anyone to keep the conflict going. And also, like, who would they speak up to, or how would they even... I don't know. I'm having a hard time picturing how it would make sense for them to come out now and say, that's me in the report.
I don't know if it would help in the sense of them just coming forward and saying that's me would help, but them corroborating one side or the other would be helpful, I would imagine. Because it seems like a lot of the tension around you, especially with these other departments and the Board of Supervisors, it stems from you saying, hey, this is what I'm about. I'm about clarity and the truth and doing my job because that's what I was elected to do. And them saying, well, that's not what you're doing. You're not providing clarity. You're not doing your job. You're not taking these steps that you should be taking. And so someone in there is telling the truth. And I think from an outside perspective like mine, what my biggest problem is I'm reading all these Lost Coast articles. I'm watching you speak. I'm going through that report, and there's no clarity. There's still no, okay, well, who is telling the truth here? Are these claims against the Board of Soups and these other people, which we'll get into later, are those legitimate, or are there claims against you that, you're not an effective leader, that you are not doing what the job entails, you're not helping your staff? Are those true? Because somebody's got to be telling the truth. It can't all be a lie. So I would assume that setting the standard with this, especially in this case with this document, where if it is slanderous, that's a problem. And if it's not slanderous and you saying it is, that's also a problem. So I would imagine that trying to clear that up would be beneficial. I don't know if for everyone, but definitely for you, wouldn't it? If staff came forward and said, hey, that didn't happen.
Right. Well, they've already come forward to me and have told me that.
Does the public know that?
Well, here's the thing. My priority isn't exactly how people see me in the public. These are people I work with. These are people I share my time with, my space with. They know my family. I know theirs. It means the world to me that they even told me. That's not true. That's not what happened. This is what I told them. And, he's saying, the investigator was like, don't you think this is this? Like, that's how he was asking the questions. Not, what do you remember seeing on this day at this time? Don't you think this? And so what this employee who was talking to me said is, see, every time he says in retrospect, that's because he's making us go back and reconsider our perspective, reconsider our memory. And I was like, it's fine. We can move past it. There's so many other reports now that we can address. I don't really know how to disprove hearsay in that report. Now, when what you're saying, I've heard a lot from people. I don't really know what to make of this. This is such a weird situation. It's he said, she said, they said, she said. How do I know what to believe? Why don't you come out and tell us all the details? Why don't you go to the board? And tell them all the details there. And I think I've been trying. That's what I've been doing for years. Just today, actually, I saw someone posted a video from a meeting in 2020 where I went to the board because they called me to a meeting. It was a 7-hour meeting on November 23rd, 2020. Hard to forget. 3 days after my birthday. And they wanted to push me to post these specific transactions related to the cost plan. I finally got the turn to speak, and I asked the Chair Fennel at the time, can I share my screen? I'd like to show you these figures. I'd like to show you the challenges I have with posting these transactions. I'd like for you to see why I can't post it. She said, okay, go ahead. I shared my screen. Immediately, the CAO at the time cut it off and said, this is not a good use of our time. Frankly, if she wants to talk about this, she should meet with our department. Right now is not the time. And then Chair Fennel told me to turn off my screen. You called me to this meeting. I'm right here. I'm trying to give you this evidence, and now you've shut me down. Every time I try to speak at the board, I don't know if you watch board meetings, for fun, but
Does anybody?
Yeah, often you'll find or you'll see Chair Bass say, how long is this going to take? How long is your presentation? Can you shorten it because we're in a rush? These people call me to these meetings. I'm not asking to be there. They're calling me to be there, and they're already telling me to hurry up and shut up. I get interrupted while I'm in the middle of a presentation to be told, just want to let you know we're almost out of time. Can I finish my sentence? I would have been finished had you not interrupted and delayed us even more. So I've learned now, after many failed attempts at trying to get the message out there through board meetings, that the board meetings are not going to be the place where I get information out. So now I'm running and I'm answering requests to be on podcasts, requests to interview, requests to do debates. Because the only way I'm going to get my message out there is if I'm the one saying it. I can't rely on Las Coast Outpost to relay my message because they edit it, they shorten it, they pick out bits and pieces. That's why one of my most recent posts on my Facebook campaign page is the full thread where I'm communicating with them so that people can go see everything that I said and not just the bits and pieces that were selected for the article.
But aren't you worried, especially in regards to this upcoming election, that if the public is reading those articles and they do read the redacted report, or even if they don't read the redacted report, that's the side that they're going to take is, oh, you're not an effective leader, you're not effective at your job, you are, either the scapegoat or the fall guy for the 2019-2020 fiscal year not being reported, that audit, the 2020-2021 one not being reported on time, that you're going to go down for that because you can't get your message out.
Mm-hmm. So, you reminded me of one of the questions you asked too, whether I'm an effective leader. So this report, this investigation of these complaints in the Pizzagate is all from 2018. In 2020, the auditor controller staff wrote a letter of support for me, and they sent it to the Board of Supervisors, and they called in and they read it into the public record. They sent it to Ryan Burns. Ryan Burns published a link to it in one of the articles. This is after Pizzagate. This is after this, this period of conflict in 2018. They stayed with me. They stayed in the office during a pandemic when a lot of people resigned their jobs because they didn't want to deal with the stress. I mean, the people that work in the auditor controller's office, they don't get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. These aren't high-paying jobs. These are high-taxing jobs. It takes a lot of you, your personal time, your mental health sometimes, and they're still there. And they do it because they enjoy working in our office. They like the environment that I've created. The tone at the top, right? In my department is we respect each other. We all do the work that we're supposed to do, and we communicate with each other. These are the people whose opinions matter. The ones that are there actively working with me every day. The people in other departments who don't know me, who don't work with me, who are reading the news or hearing someone say that one time or a thing, they don't really know me. They don't work with me. A lot of the complaints I'm seeing online, I'm like, who are you? When I've never worked with you. One of the people who's one of the more frequent commenters against me even told me he was asked to do that because I asked him directly, where are you getting this from? You and I don't work together. And he said, I was asked by my friends to speak up on their behalf.
Did he say who the friends were?
Nope.
No.
But,
Figures.
yeah.